Today, we are boarding a financial flight straight to Singapore. I mean, there's just no question. It's one of the most exciting, dynamic global hubs out there. The quality of life metrics, they're completely through the roof.
It's absolutely a premier destination. You see companies flocking there for the stability, the efficiency, and the access to that huge Asia Pacific market. It's a real magnet for top talent.
That's the shiny, exciting part. But our mission today is to pull back the curtain on the financial reality of it all. Because that premium quality of life, well, it comes with a pretty astronomical price tag.
It does.
So we're here to really dissect how relocation and extended stay budgets don't just get spent in Singapore, they just burn. We're going to focus on the key culprits. That extreme housing crunch, the daily expenses that sneak up on you, and the financial strategies you absolutely need.
Right. And the real paradox of Singapore is that, everyone knows it's expensive, but very few people grasp the velocity of it, the speed at which that money just vanishes.
Velocity, that's a great word for it.
It's a high-quality product built on very limited land. And that creates this intense supply and demand problem that pushes the price of everything,
Right.
but especially shelter, just into the stratosphere.
Okay, let's unpack that, starting with just how big of a global magnet Singapore really is. It's totally solidified its spot as a powerhouse in finance and tech.
And that success brings in this constant, high-salaried stream of people relocating for these amazing jobs.
You have numbers on this, right? The scale of it.
We do, and they really paint a picture. By the middle of 2024, the foreign worker population was over 1.5 million. Just think about that for a second.
Oh, wow.
1.5 million people. Many of them are competing for the exact same high-end housing, the same amenities, and they often have significant corporate backing.
So that sheer volume has to be the main driver of inflation, especially for housing. It's more than just a strain on resources.
Yeah.
It creates this market where the easy mid-range options just don't exist.
They're gone. New arrivals are forced to jump straight into the expensive private sector, or they have to fiercely compete for the few public options available to them.
The sticker shock must be incredible, especially if you're coming from somewhere else in the region, like Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, it's monumental.
Okay.
We're talking about rent and just your daily costs being more than double what you'd pay in a city like KL or Jakarta. You might be in the same part of the world, but your cost profile is suddenly much closer to London or New York.
So the big takeaway here for anyone planning a longer stay is that strategic planning isn't just a good idea, it's non-negotiable.
Absolutely. Because the two things that will aggressively drain your finances are, one, that housing market volatility, those sudden rent spikes, and two, the slow, steady grind of inflation on everything else.
Which brings us right to housing, the biggest chunk of the budget.
It's the primary budget chunk for sure. For any corporate relocation, rent is the single biggest line item. And in Singapore, how you navigate that housing maze is where you either make or break your entire financial plan.
Okay, let's get into the specifics then, because the difference between a smart housing choice and a rushed one could mean tens of thousands of dollars a year. We have to break down the different types.
We do. And the fundamental choice is between public and private. So let's start with HDB flats. That's the public housing.
Right.
And despite the name, they're often really high-quality units. They offer a much, much better value than, say, an entry-level private condo. But they're so attractive, they're also getting more expensive for expats.
So what are we talking numbers-wise for an HDB?
You're probably looking at a monthly range of, say, $3,350 up to maybe $5,350. That's really the floor for decent accommodation.
Okay, and then you jump into the private market.
And the price curve just gets incredibly steep. Private condominiums, with the pools, the gyms, the security, they typically start around that $5,350 mark and can easily soar up to $13,400 a month.
And you're basically paying for that short commute to the business district and the lifestyle that comes with it.
Exactly.
And what if you're relocating a senior executive with a family? They need space. They need a house.
Now we're talking about landed properties, actual houses or townhouses. Those often start at $13,400 a month and just go up from there. It's a massive commitment.
That's incredible. $13,400 is a penthouse in many other major Asian capitals, but in Singapore, that's just the starting line for a house.
And location just makes it worse. If you want to be in the central areas, Orchard Road, Marina Bay, you're paying a huge premium for a 5-minute commute.
But does everyone really need to live centrally? I mean, isn't the trade-off for a slightly longer commute a massive budget relief? Can you get by living further out?
Oh, absolutely. And for individuals or teams on a fixed budget, That's the smart play. This is where strategic choices really matter, especially for those extended stays.
Stays that are longer than a hotel visit, but maybe not a full 2-year lease.
Exactly. And we see huge demand for flexible solutions here. Things like service departments, which can be a vital intermediate step. It saves you from signing a long-term lease right away.
Which is a huge commitment. You've got massive deposits, agent fees, sometimes paying several months' rent up front. It's a lot of cash.
It is. So for that flexibility, these extended stay solutions are essential. And for companies that manage complex assignments across the Asia-Pacific, using services that specialize in these things, like service departments and even serviced offices, gives them the infrastructure they need to deploy their people efficiently.
Okay, so once you've wrestled that housing behemoth, the next threat starts. The daily burn rate.
The death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly. The small stuff that just stacks up and erodes your budget without you even noticing. Let's start with utilities.
Right. Heavily influenced by the climate. Air conditioning is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
For sure. So for electricity, water, gas, you're looking at what? $150 to $300 a month for a standard apartment. And if you run that AC all the time, which you will, you're going to be at the high end of that.
Always. Which is another reason why sharing accommodation is so powerful. It doesn't just save on rent, it saves on utilities. Splitting that electricity bill makes a huge difference.
And connectivity, internet, mobile phone.
That's actually pretty reasonable. A good mobile plan is around $22, and home internet is about $46 a month. So that's one area that won't break the bank.
Transportation, though, that's a story of two extremes.
It really is. The public transport, the MRT, and the buses, it's phenomenal. Clean, efficient, and incredibly cheap. A couple of dollars per trip gets you pretty much anywhere.
This is where Singapore really helps the budget-conscious person.
It does. And sticking strictly to public transit is, frankly, the only sensible financial choice for most people, because the alternative, private car ownership, it's just staggering.
We're talking like $120,000 to $150,000 minimum.
Minimum, and that's just to get the right to own a vehicle. That's before you even buy the car itself, pay taxes, fees.
That's buying a house in another country just so you can commute. Okay, let's move on to food. This is where personal discipline really matters. What's a realistic grocery budget for one person?
If you're smart about it and you cook most of your meals, you can probably do it for $200 to $250 a month. But that takes real effort. You have to shop at places like FairPrice or Shengxiang, not the premium import grocers.
Let's give some examples. A kilo of rice is about $3.71. A dozen eggs, maybe $4.33. A kilo of chicken breast is around $14.13. So cooking is definitely viable.
But the saving grace and what makes Singapore so unique is the hawker center. This is where you can get an amazing, authentic, full meal for just $5 to $10. It lets you eat out affordably, so you don't feel like you're constantly depriving yourself.
Right, because people don't relocate to just sit at home and eat chicken and rice. They want to socialize. They want to enjoy the city.
And that's the lifestyle variable. Which brings us to the next part. The actual financial planning for all this. A truly comfortable expat salary needs to cover the basics plus leisure.
So if you're dining out a few times a week, enjoying some entertainment,
You could easily spend $300 to $600 a month just on dining, and another $200 to $400 on leisure. So your definition of comfortable really depends on your discretionary spending.
So for employers, how do you attract top talent when the cost of living is this extreme? You can't just offer a standard salary.
No, you have to offer a package that truly reflects that cost. This means a serious housing allowance, something that covers a good chunk of that crazy rent, and this is crucial, a cost of living adjustment, or SULA.
And COLA is basically to protect their disposable income, right?
Exactly. It bridges the gap between their home country's purchasing power and Singapore's. And if they have a family, you have to factor in international school fees, which are another massive expense. If you don't offer that, you'll lose the talent to a company that does.
Let's talk about the corporate finance side of this. When companies are moving big sums of money for these assignments, how do they avoid losing a fortune to bank fees and exchange rate swings?
This is where optimizing their multi-currency transactions is key. They really should be using specialized international payment providers, not just their regular bank. The rates are better, the fees are lower.
And what about for a huge long-term commitment, like that $13,400 a month rental? How do they protect themselves against the exchange rate changing over a year or two?
They need to consider hedging, specifically something called a forward contract.
Okay, what's that?
Instead of paying whatever the rate is that day every month, they can lock in a single exchange rate for all their future payments for, say, a whole year's worth of rent. It removes the uncertainty. It gives them budget certainty, which for long-term planning is invaluable.
That sounds like something a lot of smaller companies might skip and then regret.
They do, and they pay dearly for it when the market moves against them.
Let's circle back to what you called the burn rate accelerators, the things that can blow up even a well-planned budget.
The number one killer is the housing market itself, even after you've moved in. The biggest shock often comes at lease renewal. The market can surge so quickly in Singapore that you could face a rent hike of 20, even 30%.
And if your company's budget didn't plan for that buffer?
The whole assignment is suddenly on shaky financial ground. And then you have that cumulative inflation we talked about, the small stuff.
$1 here on groceries, a few cents there on a bus trip.
It seems like nothing, but it adds up to hundreds of unbudgeted dollars every month. Over a year, that's thousands. It completely derails the forecast because most budgets are based on projected inflation, not the real-time accelerated inflation you actually experience there.
So to summarize our deep dive, Singapore's allure is undeniable, but it comes with a financial reality that demands precision. Success, whether for you as an individual or for your company, really hinges on planning and anticipating these shocks, especially rent and daily inflation.
Indeed. We've seen that things like assignment extensions or delays in finding a permanent place aren't just possibilities. They're near certainties in complex moves. And failing to plan for that is just a fast track to going over budget.
So that brings us to our final thought.
Right. So given this reality, the question we want to leave you with is this. How much of your initial relocation budget should you set aside purely as, let's call it, extension surprise insurance, or for exit costs, funds you plan for but hope you never have to touch just to give you that stability when the unexpected inevitably happens?
Something critical to mull over as you're crunching those numbers. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.